Welcome to the shadowed fields of Mississippi, 1883, where the sun fights its way through dense morning fog and the earth remembers everything it has witnessed. Welcome to a place where women swept the soil of cabins long abandoned, where every scrape of a broom against dirt carries the weight of generations. Welcome to the untold stories of Black lives in America, stories erased, whispered, yet never truly gone. Before we move deeper, pause. Breathe. Consider where you are, what secrets linger in your surroundings. And if compelled, leave a comment with the place and time you are listening. Share a connection across decades, across the Delta, across the lives that still walk among us. A woman appears at the edge of a cabin yard, her dress plain hem frayed from years of labor. She moves with precision, each sweep deliberate, almost ritualistic. In her hands, a broom cobbled from twigs and straw. Her eyes catch the first light of dawn, reflecting memories she has never spoken. And as she moves, the air seems to stir. Whispers of fate unknown drift through the cane. Historical records. Freedmen's Bureau papers, runaway slave advertisements, sparse census notes speak in numbers and dates, never names. Yet the margins of old newspapers, the faded ads posted on town squares, hint at presence. Tall, unknown origin, silent tending household or land. But the names are gone. Only shadows remain. And in those shadows, the folklore survives. WPA narratives collected decades later tell of voices carried on the wind, voices of women long gone. Singing, praying, warning, guiding. The melodies were not simple, they were survival. They were memories. They were the echo of lives denied. The broom scrapes rhythmically over dry soil, a heartbeat in the silent theater of the farm. Behind her, a child watches, small hands clutching the edge of a tattered dress, eyes wide with awe and fear. The child does not yet understand the sorrow, the power, the silent strength of those who came before. Yet the land remembers, and the memories cling like shadows following every step. Then a sudden movement in the far corner of the yard. A shadow flits too fast for the eye. She freezes. Broom in hand, nothing is visible. And yet the air trembles with presence. Legends speak of spirits walking the fields to protect the balance, to remind the living that labor's silence and mundane acts carry the weight of history, and history watches and waits. Letters fragile and faded speak from the past. A note smudged with tears. If I do not return, no, I walked through fire, and the fire walked with me. No signature, no closure, only fate unknown. And yet, the story persists. Breathing in the creak of cabin doors, the distant murmur of the river, the sigh of wind through cane. The people of this time moved like shadows themselves. Unseen, unheard, yet present. Each chore, each step, each gesture bore the weight of centuries. Some say in the early light, if you listen carefully, you can hear whispering stories of women tending the earth, tending souls, vanishing quietly into history, while their spirits walk openly among the fields. Here in this cabin yard, the stage is set. The broom strikes the soil. The child blinks in pale sunlight. And beyond sight, a presence lingers, watching, waiting, remembering. This is the beginning of a story that refuses to be forgotten. The sun climbs, shadows remain. The woman continues her work. The child watches. The land remembers. And the story begins. March 1883. The Delta wakes slowly under a pale diffused light. Mist drifts over the cane fields, curling around the edges of wooden cabins, clinging to every splintered board, every weathered step. The air smells of damp earth and decaying leaves, faintly tinged with the distant smoke of sugarcane mills that have long since fallen silent. This is Mississippi, and here the land remembers. It remembers labor and suffering dreams, and disappearance whispers of a people whose names were often erased, but whose presence never truly faded. The cabin stands alone on the edge of the field, built of rough-hewn logs, patched with boards and mud, the roof sagging under years of sun and rain. Around it, the yard is scattered with the remnants of daily life. A clay pot cracked and mended, a pile of corn husks, a broom resting against the wall, waiting for the next sweep. Every detail tells a story, even if the story is half forgotten. Here, women rise before dawn, not because they are ordered to, but because the day demands it. Their hands are raw, their backs bent, their faces lined with sunlight and sorrow. They move with precision, sweeping, cooking, tending gardens, carrying water from the creek. In the records, they are rarely mentioned. A census counts heads, an advertisement, notes, absences, a runaway notice lists age, height, and reward. But never spirit, never strength, never the stories they carry in their hearts. And yet the stories persist. Among the neighboring cabins, whispers circulate like wind through the cane. WPA narratives collected decades later speak of women whose dreams foretold events, who saw the coming storms, in visions, who sang songs that warned of danger. A mother hums softly as she works her voice a thread, connecting past and present. The melody shifts with the rhythm of the broom, rising, falling. It carries a warning, a comfort, a memory. The land itself seems to respond. The creek murmurs over stones worn smooth by years of travel and labor. Frogs croak in the twilight, a lonesome bird calls from a cypress branch. Every sound blends into a chorus of life and memory. And in the distance, faint but insistent, the remnants of a plantation's machinery groan, and creek ghosts of sugarcane presses and cotton gins long abandoned still echoing the weight of toil. Fact layer. Historical accounts tell us of the exodusters, those who left Mississippi seeking freedom and opportunity in Kansas and beyond. Maps, journals, and letters document routes, hardships, and encounters. But gaps remain. Entire families vanish from official records. Towns disappear overnight. What is written cannot capture everything, and the unwritten speaks in silences, in spaces between the words, in the pauses of breath. Folklore layer. Local legends insist the spirits of those lost still walk the fields at night. Women in the community claim to see figures moving between rows of cane when no one else is there. Some say these are protective spirits, ancestors keeping watch over the land. Others whisper of warnings, of the cost of ignoring history, of memories too strong to fade. A child growing up here learns early to notice shadows, to listen to wind, to recognize the presence of the unseen. The day unfolds slowly. Birds hop along the fence posts. A cat pads silently over rough stones. The woman sweeps again, her hands steady, her eyes alert. She pauses, listening to the soft rustle of leaves. The child watches, learning not yet in words, but in sensation. Every moment is saturated with history. Every gesture carries the weight of those who labored before. The field beyond the cabin is uneven, dotted with hollows, where the soil has shifted over decades. Legends say these hollows mark the resting places of those who vanished. Some were runaway slaves, never caught. Some were caught in the machinery of history, disappeared in the bureaucracy in townspeople's whispers. And the Delta keeps their secrets, muffling the cries, swallowing the names, yet preserving the memory. Smoke rises from distant chimneys, not from today's labor, but from a past that refuses to be silent. The air vibrates with echoes of the songs sung by women bending over their work melodies, composed of sorrow and hope, warning and celebration. These songs survived, passed orally, embedded in the rhythms of hands, sweeping dirt of feet, walking worn paths of voices, humming over laundry. Fact and folklore intertwined, tangible and spectral, alive and remembered. As the sun climbs, light falls through the trees, glinting on the edges of tools, on the rim of a well, on the frayed hem of a dress. Every reflection is a story, every shadow a reminder. The child begins to hum along with the mother's melody, catching fragments of what cannot be written. And in that moment, The invisible lineage becomes visible. The past touches the present, and the farm is no longer simply a field, but a stage. A stage where history and memory, reality and legend converge. Even the air carries testimony. The wind whispers through cane and oak, sometimes in words, sometimes in sighs. A breeze stirs a loose board, producing a sound like a footstep. And for a heartbeat, one believes the cabin is alive with watchers. An unseen audience witnesses from decades past, observing the daily rituals that repeat endlessly. Here is the setting. Here is the stage. The land, the cabin, the woman, the child, the shadows, the wind. All converge in a tableau of life and memory. And as the day stretches, each sound, each motion, each silent glance becomes part of a story that will unfold over the next decades or centuries. Fact and folklore, breathing together, inseparable, echoing. In every sweep of the broom, every whisper of wind, every footstep across the delta's soil. The delta breathes slowly in the early morning light. 1883. Mist coils over the cane fields like ghostly serpents, each blade of grass shimmering with dew, each hollow in the earth carrying the weight of untold stories. The cabin yard is quiet, yet alive with memory. The woman sweeps the broom, scraping against packed dirt. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost ritualistic, a heartbeat for the unseen. Every movement carries centuries of labor. Every gesture a silent testament to survival. Fact. There are records, faded, brittle, bureaucratic. Freedmen's Bureau ledgers, newspaper ads, town reports, all documenting lives in fragments. Reward for runaway Negro girl. Tall, silent, last seen at household chores. The words are stark, clinical, as if the parchment itself cannot bear the fullness of what occurred. Ages, heights, scars, everything measured. Yet nothing captured the courage, the sorrow, the quiet dignity. Names are listed, then erased, vanishing into ink and dust. Fate unknown. A phrase repeated across documents. A phrase heavier than any punishment, heavier than any reward. And yet, folklore persists. WPA narratives collected decades later speak of women who walked unseen between rows of cane. Some were believed to vanish into thin air, returning with knowledge, with warnings, with melodies that carried messages. One tale tells of a woman named Liza. She labored from dawn to dusk, fetching water, tending gardens, sweeping the yard. And one evening she simply disappeared. The next morning a child saw her silhouette in the cane, humming the same tune she always sang. No footprints, no voice. Yet the melody lingered, a warning, a memory, a bridge between worlds. Letters survive. Hidden in trunks, pressed between pages of Bibles, stained with tears, smoke, and hope. If I do not return, no, I walked through fire, and the fire walked with me. No name, no signature. Fact in the existence of the note. Folklore in its haunting persistence. The paper trembles in your hands as you read it, the words vibrating with absence, with longing, with resilience. The cabin seems alive. Every board, every nail, every crack whispers history. The wind moves through the hollow spaces, creating sounds like footsteps. The child watches, senses prickling. In WPA interviews, women describe hearing voices, laughter, singing instructions carried on the wind through cane and oak. Shadows flit at the periphery of vision. Eyes glint in the half-light. Some say the spirits protect the living. Others say they warn. Fact and folklore merge seamlessly. A newspaper article from Natchez reports a young black woman vanished near a bayou, last seen walking toward the fields at dusk. Witnesses claim to see a figure moving with unnatural grace, the moonlight catching the hem of her dress, then nothing. The coroner finds no body, another fate unknown. And historians compiling data notice a chilling pattern: disappearances repeated across plantations, across towns, across decades. Numbers in ledgers, shadows in memory, silence echoing louder than any cry. Folklore deepens the narrative. Dream visions abound. A woman dreams of fire, wakes to find a neighbor gone. Another dreams of rising water, and later a child clings to a branch, guided to safety. Women were said to possess foresight, their songs not mere music, but warnings, instructions, survival tactics encoded in melody. Fact documented, archived, present. Folklore, persistent, haunting, interwoven. Both claim reality, both demand attention. And the broom continues to scrape. Rhythm steady, a heartbeat in the quiet. The child watching begins to mimic the motions, unaware of the magnitude of what is being transmitted. Skill, ritual, history. Each gesture, each sweep, each careful step carries centuries of knowledge encoded in movement, in sound, in memory. The delta soil remembers. The wind carries it. The cane bends under it. The creek murmurs beside the cabin, flowing over worn stones. Fact, it exists. Folklore, it carries, whispers, scraps of song, fragments of lives, erased from paper, but preserved in memory. Each ripple echoes names, melodies, warnings. The woman glances at the creek, pauses, listens, breath held. And the child senses the same, though not in words, only in instinct, only in the pulse of the land. Birds hop along fence posts, a cat pads across loose boards. The ordinary becomes uncanny. In local legend, crows are messengers, watchful and unyielding. They appear at the edges of work, observing. Fact, folklore. Both alive. Both inextricable from the rhythm of the yard, from the sweep of the broom, from the cadence of song and prayer. Every object tells a story. A clay pot cracked and mended, a patch on a dress, a worn door frame. Fact in their material presence. Folklore in the memory, the lives, the rituals they carry. A melody hums softly in the air. The wind shifts. The broom sweeps. The child steps carefully, learning not yet in words but in sensation, in absorption, in awareness of the weight and dignity of survival. Fact collides with folklore in unpredictable ways. A coroner's ledger may list a disappearance. A WPA narrative claims the woman guided children safely through the delta, singing unseen. Shadows lengthen. The delta bends. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of timber carries a memory, a story, a life. Fact and folklore breathe together, inseparable, coexisting. The land itself participates in memory. Soil remembers footsteps. Wind remembers voices. Sunlight and shadow mark history on the walls, the ground, the clothes, the hands of those who labor. Every motion, every glance, every pause, every breath becomes a stanza in a poem written by lives lived quietly, resiliently, invisibly. The stage is set. The woman sweeps. The child watches. Shadows shift. The wind whispers. Voices hum. Footsteps echo. Fact and folklore are entwined, inseparable. The delta, the cabin, the field, the people, the wind, all merge into a living tapestry of memory, warning, and resilience. And the listener, like the child, cannot look away. The first layer is complete. Fact and folklore, coexisting, breathing together, waiting for the next incident, the next disappearance, the next melody on the wind. The story grows, deepens, beckons. The listener is drawn, hypnotized, held, and the delta watches silently. The sun climbs higher over the Mississippi Delta. March 1883. Yet the heat does little to disperse the shadows that linger among the cane. The cabin yard is quiet, almost deceptively so. The woman sweeps, but her eyes flicker toward the tree line. A movement. A shadow too quick. Gone. The child follows her gaze, heart pounding. The rhythm of the broom falters for a moment, and in that pause the air seems charged. Something unseen, something watching. Fact. In the neighboring town, reports tell of disappearances, men and women vanishing overnight, leaving only abandoned tools, half-finished chores, and unsettled meals. One account in a Vicksburg newspaper mentions a young girl last seen walking along the levee, carrying water to the cabin. By morning she is gone. No footprints, no trace, fate unknown. The town whispers, the neighbors speculate, but the records coldly mark only absence date and age. Folklore. They say the women of the Delta can vanish to the fields, guided by spirits. One legend tells of Eleanor, who disappeared for 3 nights, returning each time with knowledge of approaching storms, hidden dangers in the creeks, and warnings to children who might otherwise drown or get lost. She moved silently unseen by adults, yet always present, her melody humming on the wind, a soft, eerie tune only the attentive could catch. The line between warning and spell blurred. Reality and myth entwined. Another incident. The town of Greenwood experiences an abandoned night. A small community of freedmen awoke to find their homes empty. Doors ajar, fires cold, the children nowhere in sight. Only a single broom leaning against the cabin wall, a pot overturned. Historical records list the residents as vanished temporarily, but whispers insist the women led the children through secret paths, invisible to outsiders, guided by ancestral spirits. Fact in the disappearance. Folklore in the explanation, unrecorded, but told in hushed tones for generations. At the cabin, the woman pauses mid-sweep, listening. The wind carries a faint sound, a hum, not from her own voice. The child tilts their head, unsure if it's coming from the trees or the earth itself. Folklore tells of shadow figures who move alongside the living protectors, guides, watchers. Some insist they are ancestors, some say they are warnings. Fact, however, is the absence neighbors record no one else in the field. Yet something moves. Fact. Reports of the Phantom Regiment reach the Delta even now, decades later, when scholars compile diaries and letters. A black militia unit in the Civil War reportedly marched through the night, called to arms by no human voice. Historians question the legitimacy of the account, yet testimonies persist. The Delta, with its thick cane and hidden pathways, seems the perfect stage for such unexplained phenomena. A nearby bayou carries its own story. One woman vanishes near the water while fetching a pail. Local legend claims she slipped into the water, guided not by logic, but by an unseen hand, emerging downstream hours later. She speaks of singing voices guiding shadows, the water carrying her like a secret fairy. Fact. Her absence was documented. Folklore. Her account bends disbelief. Both coexist. The woman in the cabin yard sweeps again, slower now. Every movement deliberate. Her eyes scan for movement in the corners of her vision. The child mimics hands, small heart racing. The wind stirs the leaves, creating the sound of distant footsteps. A crow lands atop the cabin. Caws once, twice. Fact. An ordinary bird. Folklore. A messenger heralding the presence of the unseen. The rhythm of the day continues, yet a tension hangs palpable. Another mini case. A neighbor recounts finding a half-finished meal on the porch. The cook, a young woman named Sarah, had disappeared overnight. By dawn, she returned, claiming she had been walking the fields under guidance, invisible to those around her, avoiding eyes, avoiding danger. The authorities logged the disappearance. Yet Sarah's story, with details of shadows and whispers, becomes folklore. Fact and folklore intertwine seamlessly. The Delta itself seems to pulse. The soil remembers footsteps, the wind remembers voices, the creek remembers songs. Every rustle of leaves, every groan of timber, every sway of cane carries the weight of vanished lives. A pot rattles in the cabin kitchen. No one touches it. The child shivers, senses the presence, the continuity, the land and the people, the living, and the invisible, all part of the tableau, all part of the story unfolding, even small incidents. The broom left leaning against a fence, the soft hum of a song carried by wind, the shifting shadows become events of significance. Fact in their observation, folklore in their interpretation. The rhythm of labor and disappearance of song and caution continues. The delta keeps its secrets well. And so day passes. Shadows stretch long across the yard. The woman sweeps. The child watches. Something moves in the cane, unseen yet sensed. Fact. The land, the people. Folklore. The wind, the melodies, the shadows. Tension builds. Anticipation rises. The incidents accumulate, each more mysterious, each drawing the listener deeper into the maze of vanished lives and whispered warnings. The first disappearances, the uncanny movements, the abandoned towns, the phantom sounds, these are the rising incidents. They mark the escalation of history into legend. Each moment, each shadow, each breeze, each unexplained event pulls the listener further into the delta, into the story, into the truth that cannot be fully written, yet cannot be ignored. And as the sun dips lower, the shadows lengthen. The broom falls silent for a heartbeat. The child holds their breath. The air hums with presence. Fact and folklore, tangible and spectral, real and imagined, entwined in a living story that refuses to be contained. The delta watches waits, and the rising incidents have begun. As the delta settles into late afternoon, shadows deepen among the cane. 1883. Yet the land is far from silent. Fact. Archival maps preserved in faded leather-bound journals document the paths of exodusters leaving Mississippi. Routes traced by foot, by wagon, by whispers in the night. Families vanish from town records, their existence reduced to lines and dots on maps. Yet each dot hums with the weight of memory, of labor of lives intertwined with soil and wind. Reports from local newspapers echo the missing, the unseen. Fate unknown repeats across columns, a chilling refrain. Yet these columns never capture the essence of those who remain. Only the absence is recorded. Fact, the names, dates, and brief notes exist cold on paper. Folklore fills the spaces in between. Stories of women who appeared in visions guiding the lost, comforting the grieving. A neighbor recalls decades later, I awoke to the sound of singing, though no one was there. A voice familiar, carrying warmth, carrying warning. The cabin yard, framed by a canopy of oaks and cedars, breathes history. Each tool, each board, each brick holds memory. A broom leans against the wall, a pot lies in the corner, a child's doll is half buried in dirt. Fact, they exist. Folklore. They carry echoes of vanished souls, invisible hands leaving impressions that no record can capture. And the wind seems to carry their songs, each note vibrating with warning and resilience. The woman sweeps slowly, deliberately, her eyes scanning beyond the visible. Shadows twist unnaturally, movement in the periphery. She pauses, listens. The child imitates, learning the rhythm of labor and survival. Each gesture a lesson, each pause a story. Fact and folklore entwined, inseparable. Teaching, warning, connecting generations. And the dreams begin to matter. Women speak of visions prophetic and unsettling. One dreams of fire consuming the cabin. She wakes to find smoke rising from the distant cane. Another dreams of floodwaters. Hours later, children are rescued, guided by invisible hands. Fact. These events occur documented by journals and letters. Folklore. The explanation, the mechanism, the presence, intangible yet undeniable. The two layers pulse together, inseparable. The delta's waterways are alive with memory. Bayous twist and turn, carrying more than water. Fact. Bodies of those who vanished, some recovered, some never. Folklore. currents that guide or mislead. Spirits said to walk in tandem with the living, ensuring balance, warning the unwary, preserving history where official records fail. The water murmurs stories whispered in tones only attentive ears can hear. Letters fragile and worn surface from trunks and drawers. One reads, "If I do not return, know that I walked with shadows, and they guided me safely." Or not. The ink is smudged, the paper fragile. Fact in its existence, folklore in its meaning, the presence it implies, the echoes it carries. These documents preserved yet incomplete bridge reality and myth life and memory absence and presence. Even the fields themselves hold tales. Cane bends and whispers. The soil remembers the footsteps of women who vanished, yet whose influence persists. A neighbor recounts the night a woman disappeared only to reappear at the edge of the fields, guiding a child to safety. Fact in the timeline. Folklore in the guiding hand, unseen yet effective. Shadows light movement song, all converge. The woman at the cabin pauses, leans on her broom, eyes tracing the horizon. The child watches, notices the shift in air, the subtle vibrations of unseen presence. A crow caws. Fact, a bird. Folklore, a messenger, a harbinger. Its black eyes glint as if knowing what the human eye cannot see. Each natural sound, each slight movement becomes evidence. Proof. Warning. Memory. Across the delta, the community senses. Whispers pass along rows of cane between cabins in churches and gathering halls. Women speak of spirits walking alongside them, protecting warning singing melodies that carry cautionary tales. Fact. Oral histories documented decades later. Folklore, the tales persistent, woven into everyday life. A hymn sung in the cabin yard, a lullaby at night, a hum while sweeping every note, a link between past and present. The creek murmurs softly, carrying voices of the vanished. Fact. Water flows over rocks. Folklore. It carries fragments of song, whispers of guidance, traces of absent hands. Every ripple a pulse of history, every sound a testament to lives lived, vanished, remembered. The delta becomes a living archive, breathing, listening, speaking. And in the twilight, the shadows grow. The woman moves steadily. The child mimics, observing, learning, absorbing history through motion and sound, rather than words. Each sweep, each glance, each pause is a stanza in a living poem. Fact. The actions are recorded in letters, diaries, and ledgers. Folklore. The meaning, the song, the presence. Inseparable, intertwined. Smoke rises faintly from distant chimneys, not from today's labor, but from memories. Echoes of kitchens, cabins, and labor long gone. Voices hum through the delta carrying melodies, warnings, and tales of vanished women. Fact. They labored, they disappeared, they were recorded. Folklore. They remain guiding, protecting, whispering. The sun dips lower. Shadows stretch. The broom rests for a moment, breath caught in pause. The child imitates the stance, sensing the weight of history. Fact. The actions, the objects, the letters, the records. Folklore. The voices, the visions, the protective spirits. The layers pulse together, inseparable, breathing, living, persisting. And so the delta holds. The woman sweeps. The child watches. Shadows twist, wind carries song. The creek murmurs. Fact and folklore intertwined. Each incident, each melody, each disappearance building tension, deepening the story, pulling the listener into a narrative that refuses to be forgotten. Rising incidents accumulate, mystery thickens, and the tale of the Delta's hidden lives continues to unfold. Evening descends over the Mississippi Delta. 1883. The sun dips low, casting long, wavering shadows across the cane fields. Mist clings to the ground, curling like smoke from distant chimneys, long cold. The air is thick with memory, heavy with the scent of damp earth, rotting leaves, and faint traces of sugarcane smoke from mills that have long been abandoned. The cabin yard waits silent, yet alive. Every plank, every nail, every crack in the wooden structure hums with the weight of centuries. The woman sweeps slowly, deliberately. Each stroke of her broom scrapes the dirt rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Her eyes scan the edges of the field, the shadows between trees, the corners of the yard. Movement flickers in her peripheral vision. A leaf snaps. A branch bends. Something moves too fast to see, and yet the air vibrates with presence. The child watches closely, small hands clutching the hem of a frayed dress. Each inhalation, each exhalation, a silent lesson in observation, in awareness, in connection to the land. Fact. Archival maps detail the paths of exodusters fleeing the Delta. Families vanish overnight, leaving no trace in official records. Towns record absences, census pages end abruptly. Letters and journals describe children guided safely along hidden paths. Women who disappear temporarily, only to return with knowledge of floods, storms, or impending danger. Records speak in numbers and dates. They do not capture the essence, the fear, the courage, the quiet, persistent strength, and folklore. The people of the Delta whisper of spirits walking beside the living, ancestors, guardians, unseen guides. Songs hummed by women carry warnings, melodies threading through the wind, through the cane, through shadows. One story tells of Margaret, a young woman tending her garden. She disappears at dusk. Her song carries over the fields. Children report hearing her humming as they navigate unseen hazards, guided to safety. Fact. She vanishes. Folklore. She returns invisibly, guarding teaching. Reality and myth entwined. Inseparable. A letter is discovered pressed in the pages of a Bible. Faded ink trembles. If I do not return, know that I walked with shadows, and they guided me, or carried me. Fact. Tangible preserved. Folklore. The shadows invisible, yet present, ensuring survival. The words tremble with absence, with caution, with hope. The Delta absorbs every syllable, every breath, every pause. The creek murmurs nearby, moving over worn stones, carrying stories, whispers, remnants of those who vanished. Fact. Water flows. Folklore. It ferries memory, protects the living, conceals the absent. The air vibrates with resonance. Each ripple of the creek, each rustle in the cane, each bending tree, a participant in the narrative. A song drifts across the yard, faint, haunting, impossible to place. The melody of vanished hands. Voices echoing from decades past. Shadows lengthen. The broom pauses mid-stroke. The wind stills. The child holds their breath. A crow lands on the fence post. Caws once, twice. Fact. A bird. Folklore. A sentinel messenger observer. Its black eyes glint with uncanny understanding. The Delta holds its secrets close, yet in these moments they threaten revelation. Many cases converge. Across the Delta, women vanish, children guided through shadowy paths. Phantom regiments march silently at night towns awaken to empty homes. Fact. Documented absences, official reports, folklore, explanations, songs, shadows, melodies. They are inseparable. A neighbor recounts seeing a young woman disappear into the cane, only to reappear later, leading children safely past hidden dangers. The official ledger lists no movement, no explanation. Only absence. Only mystery. At the cabin, the woman leans on her broom, listening. The child copies her stance. The wind shifts. Leaves rustle. The air hums. Unseen hands brush along the walls. A pot rattles. Shadows stretch unnaturally. Fact. Everyday objects. Folklore. touched, guided by invisible presence. The rhythm of labor becomes ritual. Each sweep, each glance, each pause, a narrative in motion. Dreams become part of the bridge. Women speak of visions, fire-consuming cabins, floodwaters rising, waking to find events unfolding as predicted. Fact, corroborated by letters, testimonies. Folklore, spirits guiding, instructing, warning. The lines blur, reality bends. The delta becomes a stage where past, present life and memory converge. Sudden movements in the cane, fleeting glimpses of figures. Shadows bending toward light, bending away. Voices faint, warning, singing, teaching. Fact, footsteps, absence. Folklore, guidance, protection, ancestral presence. A child trembles, sensing the unseen. The woman's gaze sharpens, both aware, both connected. And the climax unfolds. The vanishings, the songs, the shadows, the melodies, the phantom regiment, all converge. The creek, the cabin, the field, the child, the woman, the wind, all participate. Fact and folklore spiral together. Tension peaks. The listener feels the pull, the weight, the watchful eyes. The unseen walks among the living. History, memory, and legend breathe as one. The air thickens, every step, every sound, every shadow magnified. A figure emerges from the corner of vision, vanishes. The broom moves on its own. The song drifts over the fields unheard by most. Fact, archival reports, ledgers, letters, folklore, melodies, visions, whispers. The delta pulses alive with memory and presence. Night falls. Shadows consume the yard. The child exhales. The woman straightens, listening. The wind murmurs. The creek hums. Every detail resonates. The deep bridge has been crossed. The crescendo reached. Fact and folklore entwined. The climax realized. Yet the story is not complete. The echoes remain. The delta watches and waits. Night descends fully over the Mississippi Delta, 1883. The horizon blurs as shadows stretch across cane and marsh. The cabin stands quiet now. Yet it is not empty. Every board, every plank, every weathered nail hums with memory. The broom rests against the wall, abandoned for a moment. The child sleeps curled on a straw mat, their breath slow, rhythmic, a heartbeat that echoes generations. The delta itself seems to pause, listening, remembering. Fact. Historical records speak in fragments, letters preserved in trunks, ledgers stored in town halls, faded newspaper clippings. Names of vanished women and children, families who disappeared along the bayous, men lost to war. Fate unknown marks the pages. The language cold, impersonal. Yet each absence carries the weight of history. The delta remembers what ink cannot capture. Footsteps erased from memory, voices unheard. The rhythm of lives lived quietly, persistently. Folklore. The wind carries song. A melody hummed long ago by women in the fields, guiding warning. Children recall whispers in the cane at dusk. Shadows that move unnaturally, guiding, protecting, preserving. Ancestors walk alongside the living unseen. Some say they can feel a presence brushing their shoulders, hear a voice carried by the wind, even when alone. Fact and folklore entwine, inseparably alive. The creek murmurs nearby. Water flows over worn stones, carrying fragments of stories. Fact. The creek exists, mapping the delta's path. Folklore. It ferries memory echoing, vanished footsteps, guiding the living, hiding the absent. The child stirs, sensing the unseen. The woman glances toward the water, alert, attentive. The air vibrates with the weight of history. Every rustle of leaves, every groan of timber, every movement in the shadows. Testimony, memory, presence, letters brittle and fragile surface in hidden drawers. If I do not return, know that the shadows walk with me. They guide or carry me. Fact. The inked words remain. Folklore. The shadows are alive, unseen, guarding, teaching, warning. Every line resonates with absence. Every pause, every space between words echoes across decades. The Delta holds the story. It breathes the story. It carries it forward. Even the abandoned cabins speak. Cracked boards, empty hearths, faded walls. Fact. Physical remnants of life. Folklore. Memories inhabiting the space, guiding, haunting, teaching. A child's toy left in the yard. A broken pot. A frayed dress. Fact. Present. Folklore. Witness to labor, disappearance, survival. Every object hums with memory. Across the Delta, shadows lengthen. The woman leans on her broom, still and alert. The child stirs. Notices shifts in the air. A song, faint, distant, drifting across the fields. Fact. Melody survives in record, in recollection. Folklore. Ancestral presence, guiding, protecting, preserving. The line blurs. One cannot separate what was, what is, what continues. The wind carries voices, distant, near. Harmonies of women long gone. Songs of toil, of warning, of survival. Fact. Preserved in oral histories. Folklore. Embodied in wind, shadow, song, soil. The child hums softly, unknowingly participating in the rhythm of memory. Every sweep of a broom, every whisper, every step across the Delta, transmitted, absorbed, remembered. Smoke rises faintly from distant chimneys, not from today's work, but from kitchens long cold. Echoes of cooking, of conversation, of labor. Voices hum through the Delta. Fact. They worked, disappeared, recorded. Folklore. They remain guiding, warning, teaching. Shadows stretch across the cane, a figure glimpsed at the edge of vision, moving with unseen purpose. Fact. People documented. Folklore. Ghosts of presence continuing to shape the living. The night deepens. Stars blink above. The air is dense with memory. The Delta seems to pulse. Every creak of timber, every rustle of leaves, every ripple of water, alive with echoes. The child sleeps dreaming. The woman leans watching, listening. The broom rests. Fact and folklore entwined, alive. Inseparable. Guiding the present with echoes of the past. And now, consider where you are. What shadows linger unseen? What songs of the past may still echo through your surroundings? If compelled, leave a comment. Tell us where you are, what you hear, what you feel. Connect with history. Connect with memory. Fact, folklore. Present, past, entwined, enduring. The night stretches long. The Delta listens. The cabin breathes with memory. Shadows drift over fields long tilled. Songs hum softly in the wind. Figures unseen walk the cane. Stories vanish. Stories endure. And as the breeze stirs, whispers flow across the Delta. The tale remains unfinished, alive, haunting, refusing to close. You have witnessed only one chapter. The Delta holds countless others. Fact and folklore continue to breathe together. The land remembers. The songs persist. The shadows watch. History is alive. Memory endures. And for those listening, the story does not end here.